Universities that quash free speech by stopping certain people or organisations from speaking to students could face action. Writing in The Times, the university's minister, Jo Johnson, said students need to accept the legitimacy of healthy, vigorous debate. So, our university's right to have no platforming policies. Let's speak to Trans Officer from the National Union of Students, Jess Bradley, and Education Editor of Spiked, Joanna Williams, who's written the book Academic Freedom in an Age of Conformity. First of all, let's hear from the National Union of Students. Why shouldn't anyone who wants to have a platform be able to do so in our universities?
I think this move at the moment is particularly interesting in the wake of some very unpopular Tory policies on education, such as maintenance grants and tuition fees being raised so high that actually Jo Johnson is coming back to this kind of broken record debate about no platform. And I wonder if actually this whole discussion, this whole debate is coming up now because actually Jo Johnson is embarrassed about how unpopular his policies are on education and is using this as a smokescreen. In terms of whether students should be able to debate and have vigorous, healthy learning environments, I think it's one of the interesting things that get lost in the debate about no platform is that no platform policies are the result of debate. They are debated in students' unions vigorously, fiercely, and they are decided democratically by student bodies. So the idea that students are somehow afraid of debate when talking about no platform policies is actually pretty ridiculous. We're very keen on debate. What we want is different types of debate and debate on different things.
Joanna, no platform is as a result of healthy debate.
I think that's a little bit disingenuous. They might be debating whether or not to have a no platforming policy, but essentially what they're doing is debating whether or not to allow free speech to take place on campus. But I think what's really important in what Jess has just said is how this no platforming is indicative of a much broader culture within higher education, within student politics now, that looks to censor, looks to stop people from speaking as a fact, if you like, of higher education nowadays, a fact of university life. And I'd give Jo Johnson half a cheer. I mean, he recognises that there's clearly a problem in this area. But fining universities and enforcing laws and rules against no platforming is a pretty bizarre way of encouraging a climate of free speech and open debate within academia.
Jess, you're talking nonsense.
I don't think so. When I think back to my own academic studies, I studied environmental science. I think back to the lectures that I heard, and I heard no lectures on flat earth theory, for example. And that was because the people making decisions about what to put in the curriculum, people making decisions about who gets the right to speak, simply think that flat earth theory isn't a very good debate to be had. It's not useful. Similarly, students are saying that we don't want to hear racists speak, we don't want to hear sexist speak, we don't want to hear transphobes speak. Those ideas, racist, sexist, transphobic ideas, are not debates what we think is worth having. And fair play.
Doctor?
Well, you look at lots of the people who've been stopped from speaking in universities most recently. I'm thinking of Linda Bellos, for example, who was stopped from speaking at Cambridge University, disinvited from Cambridge University. She is an amazing woman and somebody who has long-standing feminist credentials. Likewise, Germaine Greer, who students certainly petitioned against having her speak. These are not people who are promoting some kind of flat earth theories. These are sensible people with interesting views that students should be able to hear. And if they disagree with them, by all means oppose the speakers by challenging their arguments, by taking up what the speakers are saying. But just no platforming people actually denies other students the opportunity to hear what they have to say, and that's why it's so damaging to higher education. But I do think there's a real element of hypocrisy in what Jo Johnson's doing today, because at the same time as doing all this grandstanding about the importance of free speech, the government also backs the prevent strategy, for example, and it's the prevent duty that has outlawed an awful lot of speakers from coming onto university campus. I really don't see the government as being any big champion of free speech. The government's quite happy for certain speakers to be prevented from coming onto universities under the name of a prevent duty.
Jess, I'm interested in exploring further your flat earth policy and, you know, whether or not people should be allowed to come on to campus to talk about that or not. I mean, I know it's often attributed to Voltaire, whether or not it is his phrase, but I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. Often quoted in the Palace of Westminster. Why don't you abide by that?
Well, first, if I may, I'd like to come back to what Joanne just said about the prevent duty. I actually agree wholeheartedly.
I knew you would,
Joanne.
which is why I wasn't going to ask you about it, but I am asking you about the Voltaire comment.
Well, I would say that free speech is one of those things where everyone has a right to speech, right? And Germaine Greer and Linda Bellos, they all have platforms. They have very big, large platforms. You know, Germaine Greer can get on pretty much any TV show. It's actually very hard for other people from marginalised groups who they're speaking against to actually get access to those platforms. So I think the idea that a students' union can collectively decide, okay, we have this platform. What platform, what responsibility do we have with that platform? Who are we going to give it to? And I think the idea that the students' unions and universities can't decide based on ethical choices is faintly ridiculous to me. No one actually has a predetermined right to speak in a private members club, which is essentially what a students' union is. The idea that anyone can just rock up and be heard with any idea, and that for that to not be given a platform is a violation of free speech.
Okay, let's put that final thought to the doctor, because we're slightly running out of time. Doctor, it's up to the students' union who they have speak. When it comes down to it.
Of course it is. And again, this is a very, very disingenuous argument which we're just hearing, because of course universities have no obligation to invite anyone and everyone, random people off the street, to come and have a platform. But when you look at people like Linda Bellos and Germaine Greer, they were invited into the university. So some people somewhere on the university wanted to hear what they had to say. So they were invited first. And it was after they had been invited that the invitations were then withdrawn, that students then petitioned to have them no platformed. So yeah, you're absolutely, Jess is absolutely right. You know, there's no right for anybody to speak, but once people have been invited, that suggests that there's an audience, that there are some students who want to hear what these people have got to say. They want to engage with their arguments. To then a small group, a very, very small group of people within the university to campaign to have these people disinvited is denying those people the right to hear what the likes of Linda Bellos and Germaine Greer have got to say.
Okay, it's good to talk to both of you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Sky News this afternoon. Sadly out of time. Thank you. US back